Hello and welcome to another episode of A Dash of Chaos. It has been a little bit of a while, and again, I have to apologize for the break between episodes. Um, I really don't have any other reason other than life got a little hectic, and but other than that, welcome back, and I am very excited about this episode because I'm going to be talking about my experience at FANEXPO Canada Limited Edition. Um, so this is FANEXPO Canada happens in Toronto every single year, but obviously with COVID and everything, um, we haven't had the convention here in Toronto since 2019, which of course I'm totally fine with. There's you know with everything else in the world, it just wasn't the time to have a convention or anything like that. And what was important was people being safe and healthy and everything like that. So as excited as I was to go back, I wasn't kind of like counting down the minutes, but I was very excited about this con just because there were a few guests that um, I mean, there's always guests that I do want to see, but I really felt like with Fan Expo this year that I just felt my excitement just really increasing because every single time I've gone to Fan Expo, whether it was in Vancouver or in Toronto, it was obviously I was excited for certain things, but um, for this one, it was really three people to meet and also like to attend their panels. So just to get that off bat, the three people that I was most excited to meet were Ray Fisher, Janet Varney, and Dante Bosco. So if you know me, you know I'm a huge Zack Snyder fan and of all of his films and of course his DC films. So knowing that Ray Fisher was coming was very, very exciting for me. And then, of course, being a huge Avatar The Last Airbender fan, and especially a even bigger, huger, more huge, whatever word you want to use for it, The Legend of Korra fan, I was super, super, super excited that both Dante and Janet were going to be there. So that was kind of my main focus of wanting to go. And then, of course, just, being back in the overall con vibe. I think the first time I ever went to a con was, I don't know, probably my early 20s. With Fan Expo Vancouver. It was the first year that Fan Expo had come to Vancouver, so whatever year that was the first time I'd ever been to a con. Um, and then I'd been, I think, twice in Vancouver, and then I moved back to Toronto, and then in 2016, and since then I've been in 2016, 2017, 2019, and now this year. So I've been 4 years going to Fan Expo, which has been kind of incredible. Um, so just, it was a limited con. It was only 3 days, with the first day starting on Friday, and it was kind of like a half day because it started at 4. And I leading up to the event, the province of Ontario, all the restrictions with the COVID and everything were just kind of changing, but I was very confident and I felt very safe going to this con. Like, obviously, there were a lot of people, but knowing that everyone had to be vaccinated, fully vaccinated to enter the convention center, and also you have to wear masks the entire time, I did feel a bit more comfortable going into a place with a larger crowd. And that's just the general mandate for the province of Ontario, that you do need to show proof of vaccination for a lot of indoor things and events like restaurants and movie theaters, things like that. So that was already good for me, and they had a limited capacity, and there were some moments where I did feel a little crowded, and it made me feel a little uncomfortable. And so that's obviously something I feel like everyone just has to sort of get used to, is being able to be in like closer spaces with a lot of people. So but what was great about that was anytime I felt slightly, like it got a little too crowded, I could just walk into an area that had way less people. That's how spaced out things were, and it felt great. So starting off the day on the Friday, actually, even though it was the half day, I just have to talk about my experience because um, I was with a friend and he was fantastic and he was so patient with me and like waited in lines and like held my bag and took photos for me, and I can't, like I could have done all of these things by myself, but it was so great to have a friend there who was super supportive of what I wanted to do and was able to help me out throughout the entire con. But with Friday, that was the first day, and it started off just on such a high note. Um, on Friday, I met Janet Varney, and for any of those who don't know, she is the voice actor for Korra from The Legend of Korra, and I was first in line, so I had Turf Wars Part 1 ready to go, and I was just planning, like to get it signed and get a selfie, and, with COVID and everything, I knew there was plexiglass and things like that, so I wasn't expecting, too much interaction, but, just a good meet and greet, and everyone being as safe as possible, and it it honestly, it really just started off on such a high. um and basically, I'll just sort of walk through it, and I felt like I was word vomiting, but the moment Janet started talking to me, it was kind of this surreal moment where, it's like Cora's voice is coming at you and talking to you, and it was kind of weird. But I automatically had to tell her, how important Cora, Legend of Korra, just the whole thing was to me, and specifically for bisexual representation. And I talked about this kind of in my Korra and Korrasami video, but I literally told her that, my fiance is indigenous and I'm Asian and we're both bisexual, and everything about that show, like with Korrasami becoming canon. And I just, like I said, it was like word vomit, but I thanked her, and she was so gracious and so kind and was just listening to my story. Um, and it was just so wonderful to be able to tell someone who was a part of it, um, just how important it meant to me. And she was so she was signing my turf wars, and she was just like, I didn't ask for a personalization because I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, like just get it signed. And then, like I said, all the word vomit happened, and then, she was, you know just saying this wonderful message in there after I told her this whole story. And when I had mentioned, it was my fiance, she congratulated me, and I did say that, like, oh, we're getting married this year. And again, it was like another huge congratulation. And it just felt really good. And she was very patient and everything. And I, again, like, I felt like I was taking up so much more time. The other, person from like the con was beside me, like waiting to get their stuff signed. And I just was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to take up your time, but she really was, she wanted those interactions. And what she wrote in my comic was wonderful, and I'll show a picture. It's probably going to be on screen here somewhere right now, and you can read that message. I'll just leave it up a little bit. And then the one thing I did ask her to write was right on the top. Again, the image should be here somewhere on the screen, but right on the top, I did ask her to write down the "You're looking snazzy as always" line, and that was a huge. I love that line to begin with, but that was a huge shout out to Foibles, who yeah, that definitely shout out, because it was just like the best reaction to that scene. So I really did, yeah, I just it was just great. And yeah, and then she was even more awesome. Jana was even more fantastic, and was just like, okay, we can like take our photo. And she was like, I'll move the plexiglass. And then she's like, you know what, I'll come around the table. And she actually, stood beside me and took a photo. And I just said, whatever you're comfortable with. And I just kept like a good distance, just to, you know make sure everyone was safe. And like I said, I knew everyone had to be vaccinated, so I wasn't too worried about like being too close with people, because I'd been kind of walking close with other people as well. But I just thought that was so gracious. Like, they don't have to do that. And they did, and it just felt so personal. And it really just literally started everything for me just on a high. And after that, I was just kind of, I was saying to my friend, I was like, wow, I'm like, that's the best experience I've had at a con, period. And for it to be, I don't know if it was just because I haven't been to cons for 2 years, or like, just, I don't know, it just felt great. And it was just so important to me, just because the show means so much to me. And it was great to be able to share that story with her, and to just get such a positive response afterwards. And then, so kind of moving from there, I didn't really have any other plans. I was planning on maybe getting a autograph from Dante later on during the weekend, but I hadn't decided yet, and I didn't know what I wanted to get signed. But there wasn't much else left to do for the Friday, so I kind of just like walked the con and like looked at Artist Alley and the vendors and everything like that. So that was great. And this is kind of how I usually do cons anyways. Like the first day I just kind of get used to the location, kind of like scout out things I want to buy, possibly, and then I just make decisions later on the last day. It's just my way of kind of like limiting all the money that I spend. Yeah, and then the next day, on the Saturday, which is usually the busiest day of any con if you go, I was there right at the opening at 10 a.m. and I was in line for Ray Fisher, and that was, I don't know, like I'd already been on such a high from the day before, but to see Ray there and just his portrayal of Cyborg, and not just that, but him as a person and everything that he's been doing about exposing WB and just being so genuine and wanting to advocate for accountability over entertainment and the safety of people on set, whether it's cast and crew, to meet him and just to let him know how amazing that's been and how amazing his portrayal was in Zack Snyder's Justice League. And then I got my box set signed. That was just, I don't know, like, I feel like most of this con I kind of just blacked out, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so then I have that signed and it looks amazing. And he was actually telling me that this is the first time he'd ever seen the box set, which was really cool. So he's never actually signed that box set before and he's never seen it. So I was glad to kind of like be the first person to bring that merchandise to him to sign. And then later that day, it was also actually his panel. And I was so lucky that the guy, the volunteer with the microphone, he actually chose me to ask a question. And I'll insert the clip right now so you can see what it is and what my question was and what Ray's answer was. So here's the clip right now.
Directly the people wearing the merch.
First of all, I'd just like to say that I'm not broken and I'm not alone. That line just like got me the first time I watched the movie, and it was like 3 a.m. when it released. So there's a lot of emotions going on with that. The question that I have is, obviously Zack Snyder's Justice League, it broke a lot of records worldwide for streaming. So, and that shows a lot of fan support. So what is the most memorable support you've personally received, and what made it so important?
I think the most memorable support, and me personally, with respect to the film, or with,
in general,
just in general, it might have been, I had an English teacher in, this would have been, must have been in 8th grade. So in my town, we have an elementary school, we have a middle school there, but we don't have a high school. So our kids go to a neighboring town to go to high school. And I remember when I graduated from 8th grade, I'm in freshman year of high school. I'm getting through the classes and all that. I decided I wanted to do theater, and I'm getting a sense that this may be something I want to continue to pursue. So I'm pretty close to Philadelphia, where I'm from in New Jersey, and I'm about to get on a train to try to go to Philadelphia and audition for a show that's happening out there, right? This is one of my first professional auditions. I didn't know anything about headshots or resumes. I went up there with Polaroids and something on an 8x5. It wasn't anything professionally done at all. But I ended up seeing my middle school English teacher on that train. Now, he didn't have a car. He would commute to and from school every day, spend many hours getting to and from. But he ended up walking with me to that audition. talking to me and giving me a pep talk before I ended up going into the thing. Even like, I'm not necessarily a praying individual, but he prayed and was like, hey, listen, I'm just going to send all the positive energy I can to you. And I remember that his name is Mr. Kenneth Johnson. And I remember at the time I was like, oh, it was really sweet of Mr. Johnson to do. And then I realized how far he had taken himself out of his own path to like get there and, you know, and spend all that time and energy with me. And I was like, wow, that's a whole different level of support from an individual who could have just been like, oh, hey, good to see you, hi, bye. But like, I guess he saw, you know what, this kid is trying to like live his dream, and beyond just teaching the English class, right? I'm going to support that however I can, and it made a really big difference. That's something I will always remember for the rest of my life. And I remember it was like the dead of winter as well, which like added another layer to that for me. So thank you for asking that question. I don't think I've ever told that story before, but yeah, that would be one of the big ones for me.
Yeah, like I don't know what else to say. First of all, that question was actually thought of by Danielle, so another shout out there. And and that answer couldn't have been more perfect for me, and Danielle, actually, because we are both teachers, or were teachers at one point, and specifically for me and Danielle, that, you know, teaching English. So it was kind of like I couldn't believe he had said English teacher. Like I couldn't believe that was coming out of his mouth. I was just like, what? Um, so that was fantastic. And then there's another clip of a question he answered. This was before I actually answered my question, so I'm going to insert that right now.
Circumstance is a little bit different, you know. I sometimes when you're speaking up about certain things, you're having to put yourself out there, and it may feel like you're kind of like out on a limb. In certain cases, by yourself. I mean, for me personally, I didn't ask anybody for permission before I started speaking out about this stuff, so I didn't really expect anyone's help in return. I'm glad that I got the support, especially, you know, from the people in the public, like fans, who helped to like lift the message. And that I would have gotten buried by Warner Brothers' lies and PR statement if it weren't for the people who amplified my message. I didn't have a PR team. I didn't have someone who could protect me from like the corporate media machine. That's a whole different kind of beast, and it's one that I think that's the thing that sort of intimidates people the most. I mean, for me, what I would say is just make sure that you are collaborating with folks who, I would say, who you trust, folks who, if you're encountering something in this business that's not right, speak up about it, write it down, keep receipts, right? And, you know, just move with your own conviction. Like, life is too short to really compromise on that. And like I said, every circumstance is different. Every show is different. Every movie is different. Every set is different. What I would suggest to young actors out there is surround yourself, if you can, with like-minded individuals. And you know who those people are pretty quickly, right? Like, for my part, I'd rather not do what we do in this business than have to do it in a way that I don't feel comfortable doing. You know what I mean? Like, I'd much rather step away and say, look, I've enjoyed what obviously I've been in a massive, one of the most controversial and, in my opinion, one of the greatest superhero films of all time, right? That's like that's a massive sort of that's a sort of like massive milestone for me, right? At the end of the day, I can't imagine a better circumstance, at least working with Zach and that crew, than I could have had. But when it comes to like the future of the business, it's on us, it's going to be on each of us individually to do what we can to say, hey, listen, that's not right, or hey, are we making sure everybody's as comfortable and as safe as we can be on set? And you get to a point where sometimes enough is enough, and you see a lot more people speaking up and speaking out now, and I think that will ultimately change the entire climate that we're in when it comes to this sort of stuff. So hopefully it's not a massive spectacle if somebody comes out and says, hey, this thing is happening, right? You won't need the grandstand in a way because we'll all be looking out for each other in a different kind of way. And that's kind of my rambly take on it, so.
Yeah, they wouldn't be clapping if it wasn't good. So let's talk a little bit about Zack Snyder's Justice League.
And yeah, like his entire panel was just incredible. He is so articulate, and the way he expresses himself with such enthusiasm and such confidence, and but he's so humble. and that's what I felt. And I felt like, you know, obviously I don't mind when panels are all fun and games and it's just all about, you know, whatever fandom or whatever piece of media that celebrity or that guest is from. But it just felt really good as a Snyder fan and someone who has been supporting Zack Snyder throughout the entire process of getting Zack Snyder's Justice League released, to see him there and to hear him talk about his positive experiences with Zack. Felt incredible, and also for him to shed some light on the negativities of working in Hollywood and especially with WB. Um, of course, I've seen his Instagram lives and his tweets and everything, but it's, you know, it hits you a bit different when you actually are face to face with the guy and you hear him speak about it in person. Um, yeah, I can't really say much more about that panel. I didn't record too much of it, just because I didn't want to be focused on recording on my phone or whatever. I just really wanted to listen to him talk. Um, and then about an hour after that panel was the panel with Dante and Janet. And like I said, I was kind of like debating whether or not I wanted to get a signature from Dante after I'd done the meet and greet or the autograph session with Janet. But after listening to their panel, which was so much fun, I realized how many kind of pieces of media or projects Dante has been in that I've actually watched and were, you know, I loved at certain points in my life that were kind of important. And for Dante, I just remember, you know, him as Rufio in Hook was such a cool role. And not only that, for me, growing up Filipino Canadian, I was always just like, oh, this is so cool to see a Filipino kid in a big movie and playing like with the like in a Peter Pan story. So um and I told him that, which was kind of the next day when I did decide that I was gonna do like the meet and greet autograph session, and I told him all of these things about how he's kind of been in all of this content as like different parts of my life were happening, which was kind of cool. And I even told him that I didn't quite realize until I had been at the panel, because someone had asked about Hook, someone had asked about but I'm a cheerleader. So it was really cool. That was definitely a last minute sort of decision in the sense of, you know, actually doing the meet and greet, but it was definitely worth it. And he was so kind and wonderful. I feel like everyone was so just gracious about it. And I wonder, you know, like I've had experiences with guests before at cons and they've always been positive, but I just wonder if, you know, like all this time away from cons and not being able to interact with people have just kind of change the way that we all interact with new people that we're meeting, especially people that we appreciate for their work. um you know, I don't want to like come off that I'm like, oh my gosh, like celebrities, hero worship, but it just felt really good this con. And maybe it was just because the guests for me had a lot more personal connection to in terms of their content. Like I've always gone to cons and it's stuff that I like, but for this one in particular, there was a lot more investment in the media that they were a part of, or the projects that they were a part of, that I just felt like I got so much more out of the con. And I didn't buy too much, surprisingly. Um, but I will show kind of a couple more pictures near the end here of this episode of just all the things that I bought and my autographs and everything like that. But overall, I just want to say that like my experience at FANEXPO this year was probably the best experience I've ever had at a con. And I don't know if that's just, like I said, because of being away from it, or if, or whatever it was, but there's two things I do want to kind of point out to why I believe my experience was so positive. Was number one, like I was saying, the guests and the projects that they were a part of were a lot more personal to me. But the other thing too was just I felt like this time around, because those projects were so personal to me, I've met so many people through fandom that I just felt this excitement kind of for like not only myself but to share these stories with my friends. And I felt like they were kind of there with me in spirit. And I even told some of the guests, like I told Janet about foibles, and I told Ray about, like, several different group chats and everything like that, and the things that we talk about, and how much we enjoy the content. So overall, like I said, this whole experience, FanExpo, I'll give it 2 thumbs up, 5 stars, whatever. And I've never, like I said, I've never had a bad experience at cons, but this one just was very elevated for me. And if a con is coming to you soon, obviously, whatever your comfort levels are, if you feel like you want to go to one because of the guests, like, I highly suggest going to cons. They are a lot of fun. I've been by myself, I've been with friends. But again, I understand that environment, even without COVID and everything, isn't necessarily for everyone. But for me, it is something that I'm able to enjoy, and it is something that, luckily, distance-wise, is usually not too far from me. So again, very, very positive experience, and I knew I had decided very early on that I was going to be kind of like live tweeting my experience from the podcast account, either than my own personal account, and I knew this was going to be my way of coming back to doing another episode, which I know I'm lacking on, and I'm going to try to be better at it. And I feel like, going to FanExpo might have actually just reinvigorated my whole excitement for all of these things, like media and talking about it. And so hopefully I'll kind of get my shit together soon, to bring these episodes to you a bit more frequently. But no promises, just so I don't, shoot myself in the foot, basically. But yeah, thank you again. If you have come to listen to this episode, watch, because I'm definitely going to put more like videos and visuals and photos in this one. This is not going to be a common occurrence. It's just that I feel like the video clips as well as the photos really just are able to express my experiences of the con better than just what I could say. And but yes, if you got through this episode and you listened to me blabber on about my FanExpo experience, thank you so much. For anyone who has listened to previous episodes and has been so graciously patient with me, thank you for coming back. And I hope that you come back for another episode whenever that may be, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later. So until next time, this is A Dash of Chaos, and again, thank you so much for listening, and tuning in or tuning back in if you've listened to my previous episodes before. And if you're new here, hopefully this is something you like and are interested in, and if you are, click the subscribe button, follow on Twitter, and hopefully more new content will be out there soon. And I really do want to make new content, so I'm crossing my fingers that I don't get too busy, and that I just really, schedule myself, organize my time, because I do enjoy recording these, I do enjoy editing, and I do enjoy talking about all of these things that I love, and everything else in between, just like the intro video said. And yeah, so again, thank you so much, and until next time.